a spinal cord injury. For many of the participants in this study, it was the moment in which their bodies and their surroundings had completely changed. In an instant, some were no longer able to feed themselves. For others, their body no longer moved as freely as it did the night or day before. It was the realization that the relationships with the people around them may be challenged as they, and everyone else, family and friends, tried hard to deal with this forced identity transition. So what's different? What's the same? How would they be months and years, days, weeks from now? Many describe their identity shift through the use of mini-narratives as part of a grand narrative, all based on contextual factors that were both stable and in flux. So those experiences that reflected stability were different for each participant. For some, it was the injury itself. For others, it was their children, knowing that even in the midst of absolute chaos, they still looked at you as if nothing has changed. For others, it was their job that defined them before injury and will continue to define them after injury. So what then are the effects of spinal cord injury on identity narratives? What role does narrative play following a spinal cord injury? Through the use of narrative as both method and process, I've begun to discover that the effects of spinal cord injury are in the narratives themselves. They're in the details of each and every story. For one participant, the struggle to envision an identity post-spinal cord injury came in crests and waves. It was moments when the SCI was not separate from him and who he was, but rather contributed to the opportunities that he has now. For others, it's the constant struggle, as they describe the nerve pain that reminds them every single day of what it is they've lost. Sometimes the pre-injury narratives become so difficult to recall because they've melded seamlessly with the current narrative, with the grand narrative. This sense of self does not exist as before and after, but as self in that moment at that time. The narrative shared reflected a sense of self that took into account both continuity and discontinuity that can occur. One individual said, "If you were to ask me the same questions tomorrow, my answers would probably be different." So it wasn't the narrative consistency that was important, but rather the formulation of identity in response to shifting circumstance, creating a purposeful snapshot of who they were in that moment at that time. So, in other words, this study explores how they're used to shift and change and create identity, how they can describe who you were, who you are, and who you've yet to be.